still dominate research for development, and much northern support for science and innovation for the South still circumvents southern science granting organizations. So we recognize the importance of shifting this paradigm, and that's why SGCI is a flagship initiative for IDRC and partners. So across sub-Saharan Africa, SGCI has supported councils in many joint research efforts. For example, Côte d'Ivoire is working with Uganda, private sector partnerships laying the groundwork for research commercialization. For example, councils are doing IP audits and IP asset management systems. We supported councils in advancing system-level changes for gender equality and inclusivity. For example, Tanzania has been mainstreaming GEI in research and education institutions, and Burkina Faso has integrated GEI into their research proposal evaluations. The SGCI has helped to establish new councils in Côte d'Ivoire, in Sierra Leone, and in Ethiopia, and it's also enhanced cross-learning. For example, digitized grant management systems set up in Uganda, and the other councils are learning from that council. But having research funding driven by the Global South is only one piece of the puzzle towards transformational change, which is what this conference is all about, right? IDRC's Research Quality Plus framework emphasizes not just scientific rigor, but also incorporates an additional criteria to ensure that research makes a tangible impact. And this includes a strong focus on gender analysis and engagement with local stakeholders. And it also comprises positioning the use for impact, ensuring that policymakers and other users of knowledge inform the research design, sometimes even being embedded in the research teams, as well as synthesis and knowledge translation for easier uptake and direct science advice to governments. So to achieve impactful research outcomes, stakeholders including Global South, Northern, and multilateral funders must align with the broader science system. This entails not just fulfilling core mandates, but actively mobilizing knowledge for impact, providing effective science advice to governments, and engaging with academia, with civil society, and the private sector. And additionally, and we'll talk about it on the panel, fostering strong global partnerships, informing science policy locally, but globally as well, and learning and engaging as peers. All of that, I think, is equitable to crucial for shaping science funding and policy for impact. So let me now introduce our speakers. We have a great panel. First, to my far left, we have Dr. Yahya Sangare, who's the head of Fonds pour la science, la technologie et l'innovation pour Côte d'Ivoire, or FONSTI. He's also the executive director of the Programme d'appui stratégique à la recherche scientifique, PASRES, one of the main structures for supporting research and innovation in Côte d'Ivoire. And we learned yesterday at dinner that the name Yahya means firstborn son who's been a long time coming. So his parents were really happy to see him arrive. Next we have Dr. Esperance Munganyinka, who's the head of the Department of National Research and Innovation Fund at the National Council for Science and Technology here in Rwanda. Before joining NCST, she served as a research scientist over 12 years in the Rwandan Agriculture and Animal Resources Department Board. And Esperance was sharing with us her experience when she was expecting while doing field research yesterday. So I think we male scientists have no idea how easy we have it, and a lot of respect for women scientists. Online, now were we able to get our colleague Gift Kadzamira, who is the DG of Malawi's National Commission for Science and Technology. She's worked in the past at the US Embassy and before that at the University of Malawi as a university librarian. Gift, are you there? We're waiting a moment. Okay, so I'm going to continue introducing the other panelists, but because Gift unfortunately was unable to join us for today, she's told us that she's going to host the next INGSA conference in Malawi. So you heard it here first, right? To my extreme right, we have Professor Charlotte Watts, who's the Chief Scientific Advisor and Director for Research and Evidence at the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, or FCDO. Charlotte is seconded from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, where she's a professor of social and mathematical epidemiology. Last night, Charlotte told us about her cabin on the Cornwall coast, and we're all invited this summer, right? And finally, we have Dr. Salvatore Ariso. Arico, oh, I got it wrong. Salva is the CEO of the International Science Council, and previously he led the ocean science portfolio at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission and had been the executive secretary of the UN Secretary General Scientific Advisory Board. Salva was telling us yesterday that he spent some time in Canada, where I'm from, but I told him that Montreal is not nearly as cold as Winnipeg, and invite him to bring his snowshoes and warm jacket to Winnipeg. So welcome, colleagues, all of you. I'm going to ask you now each to take 5 minutes to do your opening remarks, to reflect on your experiences at the intersection of science funding and science advice, opportunities and challenges in navigating different roles in national STI systems, and the other themes that we talked about. I'm going to start first with you. Yeah. So please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to thank INGSA, IDRC, and Science Granting Council Initiative for inviting me to participate in this meeting. Thank you. I'm the CEO of FONSTI. FONSTI is a Science Granting Council. Science Granting Council are at the head of the ecosystem of research and innovation in Africa. Through our position, we can influence both upstream and downstream the direction of the research in our countries. We can also influence or play a role of facilitation in the dialogue between science, politics, and society in our countries. Briefly, what are the mission of FONSTI? We have been established to support our government to develop STI policies. STI policies are aligned with SDGs and African Union agendas. We also we have to mobilize resource from our government, from private sector, from foreign partners, in order to fund research in our country. Last but not the least, our mission is to mobilize science and with the involvement of all the stakeholders in my country to help our government to solve our problems in the area of health, of climate change, environmental, food security problem. Related to our mission, we have challenges to overcome. I can talk about few challenges. The first challenge for us is to have at the head of our state, to have policy makers who could understand the importance to invest in science for a long-term result. You know, we have, most of the time in our country, we face political instability, coup d'etat, and it is a very big challenge for us. And the second challenge for STI is the weakness of our statistical tools. If you want to advise government to take a good decision, you need reliable data. One major problem of our countries is lack of reliable data. And I can also mention, you know, the problem of our relationship between with foreign partners. Because they bring money, most of the time, they impose the research agenda in our country. It is a big issue for us. That's why I say the decolonization of research in the country is a priority. About the opportunities, we have opportunities also. We have opportunities. We have a young population. 75% of our population are young people. These young people are hungry for knowledge, and they help us to put pressure on politicians to invest in science and technology. It's okay.
Thank you so much, Yahya. It was really interesting to hear about your very broad mandate, including mission to mobilize science. So I'm going to ask now Esperance to deliver your opening remarks.
Yeah. Thank you very much, moderator, for this unique opportunity. I would like to thank you as IDRC coordinator in these discussions. For us, I would like to highlight what we do as a granting council in Rwanda. I work for National Council for Science and Technology here in Rwanda, and I would like to mention some of our mandates in terms of strengthening STI ecosystem. One, our institution is mandated to advise the government on matters related to policies, regulations, and legislation of STI. For this, I want to mention what we have so far done. We have developed STI policy. It has been approved in 2020, and now we are monitoring and coordinating the implementation of this policy. And we appreciate that under this umbrella, more policies are being developed by various sectors. I can mention one of them. The Ministry of ICT has developed the artificial intelligence policy, which is good, and we hope when we are looking for this era of fourth industrial revolution, we are tapping into these opportunities. Second, we are mandated to promote research and development. For this, the government has established a National Research and Innovation Fund, and this is managed by our council. And on top of this, the government is putting money. We are appreciating that. So far, 120 projects have been supported. More than 6 billion Rwandan francs have been committed so far. And we are seeing research outcomes from these projects. And if I can mention the focus, because we are having different grant schemes, but mainly we have been focusing on academia-industry collaboration because we understand that there is gaps and linkage between academia and industry. We have also supported women to ensure gender inclusivity. So we have like 5 projects which are women-led projects. We have also supported youth because we have, as Yaya was saying, in Rwanda also youth is above 60. So we have also invested in youth by supporting them to become entrepreneurs. We also mandated to disseminate STI and also do community outreach activities. So for this, we collaborate with various stakeholders in the country and the actors in STI ecosystem. We also mandated to assess the performance of R&D and STI across the country to understand what are the expenditure in terms of R&D, expenditure, performance, and so forth. So we have published various reports. Then I would also like that to mention we are mandated to mobilize funds, and that's what we can now mention. We have so far mobilized more than $1 million USD, and IDRC is our main partner, but also we are collaborating with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We are collaborating with CEDA, Stint in KTH, so we are extending our partnerships in regional, but also at the international level. What are the opportunities for us as a council? We are seeing the vision of the country because we have the vision to become a knowledge-based country, economic country. So this is an opportunity for us because they consider R&D and STI as key enablers and drivers for this economic growth. So this is an opportunity for us. Also looking at the actors in the country and the initiatives, we can say we are in good hands. We have a good, conducive environment. Looking at Center of Excellence, it's a big number. Looking at the research centers, we have AIMS, African Center, African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. We have University of Global Health Equity. We have these Carnegie Mellon that are coming in the country. So we have opportunities in terms of research centers, innovation hubs, BioNTech. So recently we have BioNTech vaccine manufacturing facility in the country. So those are opportunities. What are the challenges? Few challenges. Research culture is, yes, research culture, because we are funding researchers, we can see gaps in terms of this culture of conducting research that can bring impact. How can I explain this? Looking at the time researchers are allocating or are dedicating to research, you can find that there is still a need to improve to ensure these researchers are being involved, and mentorship is also needed. Also, institutional capacity in terms of technology transfer and IP. We need also to put efforts in this area. Also, in terms of data management, we need also to have infrastructure that can serve us to have data, to tap into these opportunities of emerging technologies of AI and so forth. Thank you very much.
Now you have to give a hand also to Yahya for his initial remarks. Thank you. Thanks, Esperance. That was really interesting hearing not only about your focus on supporting research, but also strengthening the STI ecosystem and what you said at the end about mentoring researchers and really taking a holistic approach to this. I'm going to check now and see if our colleague Gift is online. I'm looking at our technical support to give me a signal whether she's there or not. Gift, are you there? And would you like to make your opening remarks?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So as we're waiting, then I will turn to Charlotte and ask you to give us your opening remarks.
Thank you, and it's a shame that Gift isn't here, but hopefully she'll join soon. I'm really delighted to be here at INGSA2024 to speak on behalf of the UK and as one of the founding members of SGCI along with IDRC. When we look back and we think about some of the big progress that we've seen in development, and there has been significant progress. There are setbacks, but we shouldn't forget some of the major progress that we've seen over the last 15, 20 years. Science, innovation, including development of vaccines, more nutritious crops, more productive crops, evidence on what really does work, what types of policies work, what don't work, have been some of the game changers that have helped to accelerate progress. And in the face of the really significant challenges that the world faces, that poorest countries in particular face, clearly science, tech, innovation has an even more important role. And actually the opportunities are also greater if you look at the pace of an acceleration of scientific developments and the ways in which, by combining different scientific advances, we can really rapidly create exciting new opportunities for jobs, for growth, and for innovation. And I was at Ames yesterday, or day before yesterday, for example, and for example, the ways in which maths analysis can feed into so many areas where that information, that data, the new sort of opportunities of AI can accelerate progress are just really striking to me. But clearly we need to change the ways that we work. Historically, we all know we've had an imbalance in power in terms of decision making. We've had an imbalance in terms of who writes the paper, who gets the glory, who can actually access the information that is generated from research. Ourselves, along with, I think, all the development sector, is really trying to change and thinking about how do we radically change our ways of working. So earlier this year, the UK published the white paper on international development. So that basically sets out our approach to development from now to 2030. And in that, if you read it, science, tech, innovation, and those opportunities are woven in essentially to all agendas. It also commits to our continued support for science, technology, and innovation. And just for an example, in 24-25, the UK will be investing about a bit over $1 billion in research, science, and technology as part of our development activities. But what the white paper speaks to, and it's across all of the ways that we're thinking about working in development, is that we need to really change how we think about doing that and how do we work collectively more effectively. And so key elements on that white paper is a strengthened focus on patient equitable partnerships. Historically, often there's been a focus on quick wins, short-term, long scales, short time frames. In a political environment, it can be hard sometimes to have that longer-term vision, but we know development and the building and establishment and strengthening of institutions takes time. We need to work and be patient. It also has a commitment to stronger localization of everything, from leadership, agenda setting, and actual resource flows as well. And for me, that it's an exciting agenda, but a hard agenda to achieve. And as we move and really trying to shift the center of gravity and power to the global south, and think more end-to-end as well about how can science and innovation not only give us promising pilots and shine a light on the small opportunities, but also how do we think about the strategies and investments that really take innovations to scale. And when you start thinking that way, one of the areas that we feel proud of and where we're starting to get insights of future ways of working is our partnership and support to the Science Granting Council. Because for us, it's a really strong example of a different way of working, where essentially we are seeking to invest in the science ecosystems across Africa, alongside African governments. We're devolving priority setting and power to national science councils, and very much in that partnership seeking to learn as true peers from each other about how we continue to really materialize the opportunity of science and tech and innovation to create jobs, growth, security, and to respond to the breadth of challenges that the Global South faces. I'll end there for now.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. Frankly, it's just so inspirational to hear you talk about the white paper and the emphasis on patient development, because so many development organizations, so much of us have this sort of political pressure to produce things quickly and show results quickly. But we know ultimately that sustainable outcomes take time. And certainly also to hear you talk about equitable partnerships and localization, really music to the ears of IDRC. It really resonates as well with our mission. So thank you for that. Satwat, do you want to go next?
Thank you, and thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and very happy to have the opportunity to address participants in this INGSA conference. I'd like to suggest that we need to be a bit self-critical and recognize that the way that science is currently organized, the international science system, but also national science systems, including the prevailing funding models, that way, that organization tends to produce knowledge which is fragmented, compartmentalized, and often disconnected from societal needs. So, rather provocatively, the International Science Council has been working for a number of years on a project that goes under the label, the conclusions of which go under the label flipping. There is flipping the science model. There is a need to flip the current science model by focusing on the how science is conceived and carried out, rather than on the what, the actual problem. Because currently science is not organized in a way that is enough systems-focused, transdisciplinary, that crosses not just disciplines but also SDG boundaries, that engages with stakeholders other than the active scientific community from the outset, that engages actively the social science constituency beyond the natural sciences constituency, a way to organize science which be more locally focused, with the potential to provide lessons at the regional, from the and global levels, led by the Global South and from the regions that are most affected, and with a well-defined process of engagement of the active scientific community with other stakeholders that operate in the science ecosystem. So, for the International Science Council, which is an organization that federates the academies of sciences of 140 countries, both natural and social sciences, the international disciplinary unions, this kind of paradigm shift has not been easy. There has been a certain level of resistance by some members at the beginning, thinking that, going transdisciplinary, going in the direction that I just described would constitute a threat in terms of the need to continue having science organized on the basis of disciplinary and constituencies that represents those disciplines, both in terms of expertise but also interests, etc. But in fact, that's a false dichotomy. Because that remains the core mission of the International Science Council and the very basis of how science is organized, which does not prevent from the Council to try and pull scientists a bit out of their comfort zone and ivory tower. So currently, the International Science Council has these two missions. One is to continue ensuring the conditions for science and scientists to thrive and also, research integrity, quality of research, but also to really encourage science and scientists to ask themselves what really is an existential question. What is science? What is science in the 21st century? How is science to evolve, adapt, lead, and deliver? And I think the active scientific community is getting ready for that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Salva. I think the ISC is in such a leadership position to be able to influence these kind of disruptive, uncomfortable changes that we need to flip the way, as you said so eloquently, the way that science is organized, because the problems, climate change, inequality, and so forth, are so huge that it can't be business as usual. So I appreciate your remarks. I'm going to ask now whether our colleague Gift is available online. Almost, okay. All right. So we're hoping that we get Gift back, and colleagues that are doing tech support, just give me a signal when she's online so that I can kind of bring her into the discussion. So what we'll do now is we have 2 or 3 questions that I'm going to pose to the panelists. We will endeavor to see if we can have some time at the end also for you, audience, to interact with us and ask questions. We'll see how, okay, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, thanks. I think I was holding the mic a little bit away from my mouth. And so we're going to move into a question period now. And I'm going to start with a couple of my colleagues from the Global South Granting Councils. To ask you, Yahya, first the question about how does your council gain insight into national development priorities? And how do you translate these into the funding that you direct?
Thank you, Nasser. Well, when you don't know where you are going, it doesn't matter which way to get there. Therefore, it is very important to know where you are going, where you found research, especially in Africa, where human resources, financial resources are scarce. Donc for us, it's clear. It's clear. We have in Africa, we have different agendas. We have the African Union agenda, the Agenda 2063. It is a way for us, first way. In every country, we have the National Development Program. This program indicates the direction to take. This National Development Program indicates the national priority. As research funding organization, Professor Murenzi said a few minutes ago that the aim of science is to improve the condition of life of citizens. As research funding, we take into account the priorities indicated in our National Development Program. We launch project call. We launch call regularly. We launch call to invite scientific community in my country to propose scientific solution to address our challenges, to propose solution to solve our problems. It is clear, it is easy for us science is for our development, science is for development of our country and for solve the problem of our society. Okay.
Thank you very much, Yahya. Esperance, same question to you. How does your council gain insight into national development priorities and translate them into funding?
Okay. Yeah, of course, our insights are from the agendas, visions. I will not repeat what Yaya has been talking about, this 2063 agenda for the African countries. Specifically for Rwanda, we have 2035 vision to become a middle-income country, and 2050 to become a high-income country. And this will be achieved through STI and R&D as key drivers and pillars. But under those visions, documents, we have also short-term programs or strategies, because last year, like this year, we are ending a 7-year program. It is called National Strategic Transformation. It was 7 years, and now we are going to start another one, 24 to 9, because it will be now 5 years. It will be NST2, so that short-term program guides the country in terms of where are we going. Then specifically for us, it gives also us a guidance or guidelines and some key priority areas and interventions that are expected from us. But apart of that, I would like to give some, maybe, if you look at, we have, the country has the Made in Rwanda. This is something I can highlight here in this audience, because it gives us opportunity to ensure the industrial growth in the country. So we need to have local made products. So if there is this the Made in Rwanda policy, so how should we put it into implementation? We also have this priority to become a regional hub for innovation. What are we doing as councils to ensure we achieve this? There is this Kigali Innovation City. We are having these opportunities for industrial zone where industries can be allocated, a place for industry. So it's the priorities for the country that we should benefit and put effort in terms of supporting academia-industry collaboration, because we know when the industry is not involved in whatever we do in science, so we shall not move far. Yeah, another thing is we are now connecting with global, specifically at NCST, we have joined the Grand Challenges, Global Grand Challenges family. We have launched the Rwanda Grand Challenges. It is an opportunity for us also as a new priority, because it was launched 2023. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, or 2. So it's a new program, because also we are mandated to identify new priority areas in terms of STI performance. So this is also a good opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Esperanza. And you know what you said, Yahya, sounds simple, but it's not trivial at all. You know, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to get there, that's for sure. And I was struck this morning by the very clear vision that Rwanda has about where it wants to be by 2050 in terms of a high-income country, and the emphasis you're putting on developing a knowledge-based economy and investing in SDI to do that. I am now going to turn to Gift, who I understand is available. And Gift, I'm going to ask you to make your 5-minute opening remarks, and then also answer this question about how your council gains insight into national development priorities and translates them into the funding that you support. So Gift, are you there? Gift, just pause for a second. We can't hear you, so we'll see if we can fix that. I think it's better. Let's see. There you are. Welcome, Gift. Okay, well, thank you so much, Gift. It's really a shame that that you weren't able to come for this panel. We missed you. I think we got part of what you said, but we weren't able to hear all of it because the quality, sound quality wasn't perfect. But now your job is when you arrive tomorrow, you have to network and share that message again and reinforce it so we all understand what you were saying, because I know you're very eloquent and you have a lot of experience. So we're looking forward to meeting you tomorrow or later today. I'm going to shift now to a second question. Thanks, Gift. And I'm going to pose it first to Charlotte and Salva. It's a broad question. And so, feel free to answer it the way that you wish. How do we increase the impact of the research that we support? What are your thoughts, Charlotte?
Thanks. It's a question I think about a lot because I manage with brilliant teams a range of quite significant research investments, and I sit in a ministry that's our lead for development. So their metric of success isn't the science brilliant. They like brilliant science brilliant, but my minister's interest is, does that deliver development impact? So over time, and in all of our investments, there's sort of different ways that we try and optimize that likelihood of impact. And I suppose at the first level, it's just start with the problem or the opportunity, not the bits of science that you're excited about. Because in practice, if you start with what is the big problem where science or evidence could make a difference, right, then you end up saying, well, what then are the types of evidence or the types of advancements in science that can help solve that problem or create a new opportunity? If you start with what is the science that I really like, it's much harder to sort of make that transition to impact. I think the second one is around partnership. What we know is to get impact, you don't produce a brilliant paper and then hope somehow magic happens and impact happens. It's you need that co-creation. Actually, what is within an area of priority? What are the particular questions? What are the sort of issues? So that co-creation with communities, but also with policymakers. Who are the people who ultimately will be the audience for that research, and how do you engage them from the outset, not just at the end? Because that ownership, that sort of respectful conversations and partnerships between researchers and practitioners and policymakers are essentially that magic combination that I think is really important for impact. And then lastly, we also increasingly have portfolios. So not all research gives you something that actually works or creates evidence that's diverse enough or strong enough that you actually need to shape evidence. So in our own approach, we are often seeking to support portfolios of work where we know some things will fail, and that's fine. That's what science is about. You shouldn't be in the safe zone, you should be in the risky zone. But if you have a portfolio, some things will come through, and then it's how do you pivot and bring resource behind that. And then the last point, and I've learned that really from COVID, is just how do we get better at being end-to-end? So we're not only thinking, when we're commissioning research, about what can science give us, if I think in health, a new technology, but also, or a new innovation in clean energy, for example, but also what might be the valleys of death, of the things that take it from a small, great piece of learning to actually something that maybe goes to the next scale. If it's a business that takes it through the valleys of death to something then that can be transformative. And in our department there, we're trying to say, how do we line up our investments that, say, for example, has our research investments getting some way through the sort of risk, managing and early risk, but then having follow-up opportunities for capital investment where things are taking off, that take it out of the research world and into actually achieving impact at scale.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. You clearly have thought about this a lot. So start with the problem, partnerships and co-creation. I really liked what you said about sort of a balanced portfolio, because some things are going to be riskier and not necessarily turn out, but maybe they will. And some things we have to build on strengths, and then certainly the end-to-end piece. How about you, Salva? What's your perspective?
It's a difficult question, but an important one. I think the best way to maximize impact is relevance, the relevance of the science that we carry out. I think we need to recognize individually, and as not just individuals, but also as individual organizations, but also collectively, that science is operating in a different environment. If you recognize concepts which are new, but which appear to be rather fundamental, such as earth justice, safe and just earth system boundaries, new legal frameworks and governance, concepts like planetary stewardship, well then, which I think is the direction that the world is going on, despite being heavily polarized and fragmented, there seems to be some common concerns that emerge regardless of the region or the constituency or the stakeholder, the interest group. So that is the new environment, and by the way, the evolving environment, continuously evolving environment in which science operates. So let me come back quickly to the question of science ecosystems. So who are the actors operating within science, such science ecosystems? We have the active scientists, we have the funders, we have the publishers, we have research infrastructure, we have policy, we have society at large. Take, for example, societal acceptance of the applications of the findings of scientific research. So in that context, the ISC, through its ISC Commission on Science Missions for Sustainability, really advocates for co-design. I'm now essentially picking up on what Charlotte said, on the need for the research agenda to co-design. And how do you co-design the research agenda and, in fact, the science agenda more generally? It's not only about taking into account relevant aspirations and expectations of stakeholders other than scientists by the scientists themselves. It's about sitting around the same table. So it's a new way to design those very research questions that, if co-designed in that way, are likely to lead to actionable knowledge to tackle and solve those solutions. So it, in a way, inclusive collaboration among a wide array of stakeholders around the science table, in the view of the International Science Council, provides the new norm, represents the new norm in science. I think the funders, in conclusion, are key actors when it comes to promoting and supporting, but also identifying in the first place opportunities to generate actionable knowledge. There are examples of funders such the IDRC, not to please you, but it's a reality, or SIDA, or, but also increasingly consortia of funders, the Global Forum of Funders, the Global Research Council. They are really going in, their thinking individually and collectively is increasingly going in that direction. And I think it's only with such a revisited approach to science that science advice, because we are attending the INGSA conference, can deliver. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salva. I mean, certainly you reinforced the point that Charlotte was making about partnerships and co-design, and we get better results when we work together, also in an inclusive way. But I loved what you said at the beginning about relevance. It's not science for the sake of science. It's science for the public good. It's science that helps us improve people's lives at the end of the day, but also helps us tread very lightly on the earth. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask the same question to my colleagues from our Global South councils. We'll start with you, Yahya. How do we get more impact of the research we support, and how are you going about doing that in Côte d'Ivoire?
Without reducing research to its utilitarian dimension, it is very important for a country to look at carefully where the public fund, the public money goes. Traditionally, when I talk with my scientific community in Côte d'Ivoire, I say, we cannot do research like in Finland because we are a poor country. Research excellence for us is high scientific quality, but above all, it is impact Research must reduce poverty in my country. Research must elevate the level of quality of life in my country. And it's very, very important for us. Research excellence is not published in Nature, in publication Nature or Science, but it is to solve a concrete problem in my country. Donc for us, impact, it is a critical issue, a critical question for us, and it is easy for us to measure the impact of the money we invest in science in my country.
Thank you so much, Yahya. Esperance, how about you? How do we get more impact, and how are you doing that in Rwanda?
For research impacts, funding research for impacts, we would also consider proportion and quality of research that is being conducted in the country, because whatever we do, we need to transform the society. So we need to look into quantity, but also quality of research being conducted and outputs. Secondly, we need to move from, we used to fund this, to provide these seed grants with little money. So we need to move and ensure we scale up and commercialize the innovations from the project we are supporting. Also, we need to put efforts into human capital development because there are still gaps in terms of personnel that are involved in R&D because we have data from the surveys we conduct, so there is a need to improve in capital human development and research infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esperance. No, keep the microphone, actually. I'm going to ask you 2 questions in a row. So I'm going to move to a third question. And of course, this conference is about science advice. So what's your experience in advising on science, technology, and innovation to your national or local governments? And how do you work with other stakeholders in the science ecosystem to do this?
That's a good question. We are actors in this room. We have Higher Education Council. There is DG. If maybe I can give her also, because we have short time to have also our audience participating in this, so she can also give insights on how do we collaborate, because council is coordinating, but we have also our partners.
Be careful.
Welcome, DG.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. And so here in Rwanda, we try to work together. Working together means the council is mobilizing resources, and they give a call for proposals for those who are interested in getting the grants. The calls, many people apply. Specifically, I'm talking, as she said, high learning institutions, lecturers, researchers who are involved in the area of interest. They apply, competition, and later on they conduct the research. But there is a very, very tough exercise to select, because when you have a little cake and you have to share it with many kids, like in African families, sometimes it became tough. So maybe this is an opportunity also to call upon to increase the funds for the council to be able to finance, to support research. As they said, there are small grants, there are middle, and there are big ones. But maybe as this morning, Professor Morenzi was explaining, and others, we have to do policies, we have to develop on research, evidence-based. And sometimes you can conduct a small assessment which can inform policymakers. And our researchers, they lack resources to do so from the high learning institution and even from private people. So this is why this council, actually they have to increase from government, from development partners, and from you people here in order to inform, to make sure that decisions taken by our leaders are based on evidence and evidence proven by researchers and researchers from our high learning institution and other institutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, DG. Yahya, I'm going to give you the opportunity to answer that question as well.
Tu peux répondre la question? Ouais.
What's your experience in providing advice on science, technology, and innovation? Quelle est votre expérience pour conseiller les gouvernements en sciences, technology, et innovation?
Okay, merci. Bon, I would like to say that traditionally, the role of Science Granting Council in French-speaking countries is somewhat little bit different from English-speaking countries. In French-speaking countries, the main role of Science Granting Council is to fund research. But the situation has changed because recently our countries are faced two major events. The COVID-19 crisis and the crisis of Ukraine, These two multifaceted and multidimensional crises impacted strongly our societies and our economies. During this crisis, I could say, our government invited the Science Granting Council to gather the scientific community and to invite them to propose solutions, indigenous solutions, adapted solutions to solve different problems related to this crisis. Now, we have set up different bodies, where the different stakeholders are represented. Government, private sector, civil society, and we try together to discuss, to produce knowledge, to produce indigenous solutions adapted to our crisis. It is a new experience in our area and cultural area. This is a new experience for us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yahya. It's really important to hear how you assembled a broad spectrum of stakeholders to kind of brainstorm solutions, including civil society and community groups, to address COVID. And in that example, Charlotte, you have Chief Scientific Advisor in your title, and FCDO certainly funds a lot of research. So are there some insights that you want to share with colleagues?
Yeah, happy to. So my role in FCDO is to provide science advice to my ministers, to senior officials, and including across development. And also we make major research investments. And increasingly, we've been thinking about how do we bring together our thinking about research investments with also recognizing the types of technical advice and expertise that both we need to access, but also when we talk to partner governments, they are seeking expert input on. So things like the clean energy transition, or issues around public finance, or around opportunities of different technologies. And so now what we're doing across a lot of the major sectoral portfolios of research that we support are including that in that. What are ways to have drawdowns of expertise? So part of the partnerships that you're supporting there that bring together experts who are generating evidence, who have deep knowledge, is how can we access that in an advisory way to complement the sort of advice that myself and other experts within our departments are able to make, because we recognize there's so much depth of technical issues that ultimately in our policy making and in partner policy making, they need to be sort of thinking about and get quite deep expert advice. It's been quite a big push. So now we are launching a number of centers of expertise, and that includes both links to our research programs and also the deep experts, both in the UK and internationally. Post and in our range of our development programs, we're drawing on that ability to access deep expertise.
Thanks, Charlotte, and that's fascinating. I guess one of the challenges that all of us as scientists face is that we have that deep knowledge, but being able to translate it in a concise way to policymakers at the right level, and then know when to go a bit deeper is a challenge. This is a really interesting discussion. I'm sure you have a point of view, Salva, so please.
Well, in a way, you triggered my reaction because you said you spoke about translation, which is an important part of the science advice, process. But I think it's more than that. And, it's about brokerage. It's a two-directional relationship, and at the end of the day, scientists are there to say this is what we know and this is what we don't know, and these are the implications of what we know, and then enter into a dialogue with policymakers, for example. If I may take the opportunity, the International Science Council, when it comes to science advice, there are two lessons that I wanted to share with you. One is that our members don't seem generally equipped with the tools and the experience related to the practice related to science advice, but there is a growing demand. We have plenty of examples of academies that during COVID they had the expertise that could have assisted the respective governments facing and tackling the crisis, but the communication was not there. The mechanisms were not there. The languages are different. Even the epistemologies, the way you look at the very same problem can be so different. So I think conferences like this, and more importantly, what underpins this conference, really the tools of science advice, the experiences in science advice. And the second are extremely important, and the ISC is collaborating very closely with INGSA to work with 250 members precisely and accompany them in the practice of science advice. And the second lesson is there are a lot of case studies that one should be able to capture and capitalize upon, and there are a lot of case studies in the Global South. And I'll give you two examples. One is we are embarking with the IDRC into a project on AI in the Global South, and already now it appears that there are so many examples of countries and with the help of scientists that are tackling AI in a very not necessarily in a panic kind of way, we must regulate or forget it, this is not something that we can do anything about, in a very pragmatic way. So capturing those experiences, documenting those case studies is very important. And the other example I actually forgot, but we don't have time, so that's fine with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Salva, and thanks for mentioning that AI example where we're working with you, but we're also working with FCDO on a big AI for D program. And I'm just going to pick up your point about brokering in two-way, because I think AI, but also many other issues is, it's one of those things where it's not like the global north has all the answers. We're struggling with all the same issues related to governance and risks and so forth. As is the global south, and there's a tremendous expertise in the global south. And in fact, some of the use cases we're looking at, there's more data in a way on the use cases here, but we have to document it, and it's one of the emphases of our program, which is looking at strengthening capacity to do AI in Africa, building the capacity to govern AI effectively, and of course support innovations that not only where the market is going to take it for sure. There's trillions going into AI, but to help low-income people. And I want to thank FCDO as well for their partnership on this. I'm just looking at the time. We have about 15 minutes left. I'd like to give the opportunity to all of the panelists to do a quick closing. If there was something that you still wanted to say that you weren't able to, then we will. So start thinking about that. I'm going to give you about a minute each to do that. I'll do a little closing at the end. We will finish on time. I think everybody's probably ready for lunch. But we have time for maybe one or two comments from the audience. And I'm just looking to see if there's some hands up. There's a hand from a gentleman there, and one there as well. So we'll take these. Do we have a tech support? Do we have microphones that we can share with the colleagues? Or maybe we can grab one from up here. Please identify yourself and then be concise in your question or comment.
Hi, James Wilsden from UCL, Research on Research Institute. Hi, NASA. Just a quick thanks very much for a very interesting panel. I was interested in whether colleagues on the panel see more scope to forge links and connections between all of the data and evidentiary inputs we've been discussing here and the swelling move towards more investment and capacity in meta-science, meta-research that we're also seeing in science and research systems globally. In the UK, we've just launched a funding call yesterday, which Charlotte will know about, I'm sure, for projects on meta-science, and I was in Ottawa, NASA, just last week with the tri-agencies looking at the scope for a Canadian call in this field. And that's just two examples, but I was interested in, particularly in a south or south-north context, whether colleagues see more activity or potential in that area. Thanks.
Thanks so much, and it's wonderful how you bump into colleagues at various conferences. So it's wonderful to see you again, James. We're going to take two questions in a row, and then I'll ask the panelists to answer them. So could we have the microphone in the far part of the room with the gentleman with his hand up? Yeah.
My name is Prince Jose. I'm from AIMS. Thank you for the great discussion. So I want to find out your opinion on research funding in basic science versus applied. So especially for the Global South, I've heard a lot about investing in funding for research that you can directly see impact immediately. But history has shown us that yesterday's basic science is tomorrow's technology. So if you look at, for example, 100 years ago, quantum science was invented. But today, it is at the core of all the electronics that we use today. The LEDs, efficient light, mobile technologies that even our mothers in the village are able to do banking on mobile phones. So I want to, there is a point of view that it is very important that one should, especially for the Global South, not only pay attention to funding science that we see immediate application today, and that there are a lot of deep problems that require basic thinking to resolve. And therefore, we need to also think about funding basic science.
Thanks so much, Prince. I'm going to turn first to colleagues on my left, the question about fundamental versus applied science and sort of maybe the proportion that you're funding or your thoughts on that. But you can also come in on the question of linkages between what's happening in your institutions and the growing field of meta science, if you're involved in that at all. So, Yahya?
Bon, I will answer to the last question first, because this is a very critical issue for Africa. You know, you have to, every time, to know what you are. What is your situation? Our situation in Africa, I've said, it is a continent. Our population is young, is growing, but the human resource, material resource, financial resource are scarce. But Africa is a continent of the future. We face currently development challenges. You know, development challenges are multidimensional, are multiform. You cannot resolve, you can solve development challenges, as Salvatore said, with a monodisciplinary approach. The problems are complex, the problems are transdisciplinary. If you want to solve a problem, it is a problem, you have to produce knowledge. Produce knowledge means you have to produce basic knowledge. You have also to produce applied knowledge. Because most of the time, the situations are urgent, critical in Africa. You know, we are here in a meeting where we are discussing about the link between the relation between policy, science, and society. The time of policy is not the time of science. When you win the election, it is maybe for 5 years. After 5 years, you have to go back to your population and to try to re-elect it. If you don't have a result, you'll go back home. Or if you want to get a result, you have to invest in applied science to solve most of the time immediate problem. For example, in Côte d'Ivoire, in my country, our project in my country is to establish a world-class economy in agriculture. We are now the largest producer in cocoa. With my colleague, my neighbor Ghana, my brother of Ghana they are second. But how we did to get this result? We invested in research. In my country, few years ago, if you want to harvest cocoa, you have to wait 4 years. You know? Now, with the help, with the support of research, we can harvest the cocoa after 18 months only. The impact is enormous, is big for the economy. But you are true. We don't, Africa must participate in the production of knowledge among the world. In my organization, FONSTI, concretely, we allocate 20% of our resources to fundamental research. You know, mathematical, philosophy. It is important to know African philosophy. Most of the African intellectuals, when they speak, they say, oh, Nietzsche say, Pascal say, Diderot say. But they don't know African philosophy. It's important to invest in philosophy. It is a basic science, fundamental science. Donc, for me, you have to balance, you know. It is my answer about this question.
Thank you very much, Yahya. Esperance, do you want to answer that question about balance between fundamental and applied science? And I ask you to be brief as we're moving to wrap up.
Yeah, I think balance is key in terms of looking if you support basic research, applied research, or research and development. For us, what we do, our funding goes to all these areas, basic, applied, and research and development, but it has to be evidence-based. Through the surveys we do, R&D surveys, like in 2019, we found that the R&D, research and development research has declined considering the past years. So the efforts now we are putting in experimental development research. That's where we are now putting efforts. So I think balance is key, looking what is needed on the ground, what are the gaps, then you put funds considering what is needed. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Esperanza. Charlotte, do you want to address the question about meta-science?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that because I don't know a lot of the details. So it's always one of those embarrassing things where, and it links to the point I was going to make at the end, that as a chief scientist, you don't know everything. And often, actually, that's why you need those external networks and to be draw on the experts that you have in your ecosystem and in the networks of science that you support. But I think if I'm second guessing, it could mean many things, but clearly we don't want to be investing in research in one context. It's how do we bring together learning across different geographies and how might that give us, and data and so on, how that might give us different insights and knowledge. And in the way that we invest in research, often we are trying to generate evidence from a range of different contexts because that is important, but also supporting those South-South, South-North partnerships as well, because we know they can be what we also know from science is essentially not only that co-creation on the ground, but actually international collaboration is really critical to accelerating learning and progress. And I assume that's some of the assumptions under some of the meta work, but I don't know the specifics, I'm afraid.
Okay, great. Charlotte, did you have any additional wrap-up comments? Because I'm giving you 30 seconds now each for wrap-up. Anything else?
I just wanted to really emphasize the issue of science advice and how important it is. And I mean, I'm biased because I'm a chief scientist sitting in a department. You can have great research, but the question is, how do you spot the opportunity to bring that into policymaking? And what we're trying to do in the UK, and I see a number of other countries doing, is how do we ensure we have a number of scientists in our civil service, so they understand science, they understand evidence, but also having chief scientists, people whose job in government is to try and ensure access to evidence, to call out when a policy is not evidence-based, or to be able to bring in expertise, is a really important aspect of how you can benefit from the fruits of research investments, so that it actually translates into impacts on policies, and assuming that will happen organically without people embedded whose job it is to try and do that, and also call out when things aren't evidence-based is, I think, quite an important part of the ecosystem. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlotte. So, Selva, 30 seconds, wrap up, last point.
Yes, my 30 seconds are very much on the same line. I think scientists should embrace the notion and the importance of science advice, and those very institutions that form scientists should take that into account and form scientists also in the practice of science advice. Not everyone can become a scientific advisor to a prime minister or government, but excuse me, I think it's a great opportunity for science to demonstrate not just its freedom and independence, but also its responsibility vis-à-vis society. Thank you.
Thank you, Salva. Last word from you, Esperance. Anything you want to reinforce?
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yahya, anything last thing to say? Okay, colleagues, so we're just going to wrap up. I've so enjoyed this panel, and I'm not really going to try to summarize it, but just a couple of things that really resonated with me. That the Southern Granting Councils are actually already aligning fundings with their national development priorities, and we've seen some examples: Cote d'Ivoire, Rwanda, Malawi, but other councils as well. We're exploring different ways of the way that science is evolving in terms of what research excellence means, gender equality, inclusion, open science, and so forth with the councils. But the point that really, really resonated with me is this one about respectful, equitable, demand-driven global partnerships to really inform local and global science policy and funding for impact. The point that you made, Salva, about co-creation, and as well, Charlotte. I would say also, I think your point about science advisors was really crucial, Charlotte, and I guess I would complement that with that effective science advice depends on high quality science, right? And it's your point about end to end as well, right? And considering things like gender equality and inclusion and local knowledge users, and that's why I was so pleased to kind of see examples where so many of the Southern councils are actually evaluating their proposals to see if they're properly incorporating gender equality and inclusion in them. And I'll just give you a quick sense that we're planning another phase of the Science Granting Council initiative. We're consulting with partners. We're certainly consulting with the councils. And while we will certainly continue to fund research on development issues with the councils, we're also thinking about supporting the broader ecosystem and helping to strengthen the capacity of universities, but also what we're talking about today in terms of strengthening granting council roles and shaping local and global science policy, including participation in organizations and connections with the International Science Council, but also, as you mentioned, Salva, with the Global Research Council. And a little shout out to Yahya. Yahya is the co-host this year, along with the Swiss Development Corporation, of the Global Research Council meeting, which is going to be in Switzerland. And that is exactly the sort of thing we want to see, is for Southern voices, Southern expertise to be informing local debates and development of global science policy. And it's really, really wonderful to see. With that, I'm going to wrap up, and want to ask you all to please join me in thanking our wonderful panelists today.